Hello, and welcome to season 2 of the College Football Today podcast. We're going to be covering so many different topics, anything that trends, kind of how the College Football Today, the old website had started, top football recruits. We're going to be talking about all these guys, video analysis, going through step by step on their highlights, pointing out what I'm seeing that's making them, really stand out or stick out on tape. Going over more of the step ratings on, I know some people, it's confusing to some people, actual football stuff in algorithms, because the way 247 does things. We're going to go over that. We're going to go over how the process began on March 11th of 2017 in defining my own process, which started the evolution of the step ratings project, which is going extremely well. I mean, our number one quarterback in class of 2022, Connor Harrell, just picked up his 31st offer. And it's going on and on and on. It's going great all the way down to 2024. Guys from smaller states that are under recruited, are getting recruited, and that's a great sign. From years past, it usually comes down to the end game, really, or in January, these guys from Nebraska and like little states, like so-called little states like that across the map, the recruiting map. Don't really get looks until the end, like last ditch stuff. But now we're seeing them really pick up. Um, you know how I tied the NFL draft scouting I've done over the past 4 or 5 years at the NFL Reese's Senior Bowl. My NFL draft prospect rankings using the step ratings, the enhanced step ratings NFL draft position algorithms. They went extremely well this year. Um, how I formulated, the NFL draft team grades. That will be tweaked for next year. It really was just kind of thrown together, and I think it made more sense to me than it does to a lot of other people because that's what I want to show you as well on this show through the video analysis, through the videos I'm going to do. I'm going to show you from my end exactly what I'm talking about and exactly what I'm seeing across the board as far as the hypocrisy is concerned on recruit rankings, NFL draft prospect rankings, opinions. Not gonna lie, like so about half of us match up. Like we'll match up on things, and then but there's so many topics. So there's a million topics in a year, and there's just some things that I seem to be on complete opposite side of the fence on when it comes to who's what, who's who. But now that we have 5 years of evidence compiled um, from the draft, from me scouting the draft, making sure it was documented every step of the way. Calling that Mitch Trubisky was a bust. A lot of different things. Kyler Murray be my number one quarterback before the season even started. College football season that year. A lot of different little things that we've done that have impressed some people across the board. This year was great. The draft. I mean, looking at the board, missed a few players, but the COVID pandemic made it almost impossible for NFL teams, believe it or not, to get all of this information that they needed from the accurate stuff from the pro days. Obviously, college teams might be inclined to fudge some numbers. I mean, if it matters that much to these guys for the draft, 40 times and all that, but I'm not saying that's what happened. So I collected every university's pro day numbers. Mostly 99% of them. I don't know. I might have missed a few, but the reason I collected it was to enhance, revamp the step ratings algorithm, some of the core pieces like the combine chart, and make it significant because a lot of you guys, these younger recruits that are on my Rockfin channel and listen to my shows from the past and read my articles and whatnot, you want to go to the NFL, so you want to go big time D1, you want to go to college anywhere, really. I mean, I thought Cade Johnson was, after I reevaluated everything on him, uh, thought he was one of the best slot receivers, in the NFL draft in 2021. He went as a free agent to the Seahawks, but he's in a great situation. Him and Russell Wilson are going to be beautiful together, to be honest, with DK Metcalf on the outside. But if we look at, you know, where you want to go. The combine comes down to attention to detail, right? Most of you guys, 99% of you guys that are on my board, I mean, all 100% that are on my board are athletes, so and football players. But first and foremost, you're athletes, and that's what coaches like Urban Meyer always preached about when he was at Ohio State. Um, a lot of coaches, they look for athletes first, and then they're going to mold you into what they need um, that year in that class at that university. So um, it's a numbers game. It all comes down to numbers, but in the end, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the best athletes. So, and that's a trend I've noticed across the board, which is, I mean, it's not a bad trend. So there's a lot of people out there that trash, the combine. Always combine guys. This, that. What about playing football? Yes, I mean you have a justifiable case, but at the same time, when you get down to the end game and you have 10 guys that you really like at a position, there's only a few ways you can separate them. So, um, and that's what the combine's for. It's to create that little bit of separation on boards where you can flip a coin on these two. Like who do we want? Gets in the draft, it's coming down. Say we're in the third round. And there's two guys, similar position. We're at the same position that we really like. We need that position this year. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to go look at his combine. We're going to go look at his athletics. We're going to go look at off the field issues, records, all that, see if he's, got good off the field habits, mental game, all of those things. I mean, there's a whole body of things that go into it, but the combine. So my point is, attention to detail. When I started in 2016, I ran training camps in Ohio, Tennessee, Colorado, Texas, all over the place. Did some travel in Illinois, uh, and I realized like 90 something percent of high school football players don't know how the proper start on the 40-yard dash. I mean, they'll pop straight up. I mean, that's two or three tenths of a second. You're losing just popping up in the air just based off of, basic physics, body mechanics, and all of that when you're flying off. So there's a proper way to do it. There's two ways that guys coach that are pretty successful, but I believe in gaining ground, as much ground as you can on your first step, and just firing out, staying low, and showing that explosion that you do in the broad jump. And that's what these things are for. These tests, these little tests are to show, okay, who's the best overall athlete, and that goes down to what are you doing the rest of the year. Other things that can create separation, in the end on a board. Basketball, baseball. I mean, is one guy just an all-state football player? The other guy's an all-state football player. All American, all everything, whatnot. But then the other guys, during the winter, he's dunking basketballs from the foul line. That's separation right there. I mean, you're like, oh wow, and the name's getting dropped, online over and over and over again. And that's what I've learned as well, and it's part of the step ratings. I mean, it's part of my pipeline program. If you Google like top 2022 QB recruits, DB recruits, you gotta put top 2022. I mean, you can put 2022. There's a lot of different terms and stuff you can use, and you'll find all of our databases on the first page of Google rankings. Sometimes, most of the time, for each position in the databases and stuff at the very, 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 very top with 247 Sports, which brings me into more of the whys on, what started the project and studying how things are. In the beginning, like, I'm not gonna lie, was a little disheartened, but like that's kind of how I am as a person. If you know my career, I played for 19 different professional teams. Now play is like in quotations because sometimes I was just in camp for the NFL stuff, or like getting tryouts for teams and whatnot. Because there's just one article that's like completely over dramatically blown out of proportion. Said I played for the Denver Broncos, which was totally, not accurate. But let's get back to the topic at hand. Uh, I worked out at the University of Northern Iowa at their pro day. In 2009 was my draft class. I left college early, um, no, which goes back to my sophomore year of high school, which here's what we'll get into, in more in the episodes down the road because it's a very long story. But it all came down to I was the South Jersey, New Jersey, freshman of the year, newspapers everywhere. Played varsity my freshman year, did great. Had a really good year returning kicks, kicking field goals. I was a true freshman, so get kind of caught up in it a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. Biggest school in New Jersey. Um, start first freshman ever to start varsity. It was pretty cool, but made a lot of mistakes, off the field. Partied with the seniors, did a lot of things. We were known for being a lot of drugs, in our school. We were nicknamed Heroin High. I never did heroin, but I'm just giving you an example. So there's a lot of parties. One night, my sophomore year, I get wrapped around a pole as a passenger at around 80 something miles per hour. The police report said. I don't remember any of it. My head was split open in the back into the pole sideways, and I was life flighted to Cooper Hospital in Camden, New Jersey. And my parents were called, and when they were cutting me out of the car, people thought I was dead. So that's not a good, thing to happen in the middle of your, high school football career, or just life in general in high school, your high school career. So looking back at it, there was a rush to get me back on the field. Catholic schools calling left and right. I missed the whole semester at Washington Township High School, my whole spring semester, and was homebound and had a lot of things, to work through mentally just to get my head back to where, if this was today, let's put it this way, if this was today, they probably wouldn't have let that kid back on the field at least till his senior year, probably never. That's how bad the head injury was. But learning from that really has helped me, moving forward, obviously. I ended up, I was a very good student up until that point, had all A's and B's. Uh, didn't do too bad when I went back to school either at Gloucester Catholic High School. They gave me an opportunity, to come there and play football, basketball, baseball, track, whatever I wanted to do. And I was very grateful for that opportunity, and I took it. And it's under a little town, it's a little town under the Walt Whitman Bridge, right next to the number one crime rated city in America, smallest city per capita crime city, Camden, New Jersey. So it's not the best area. So you learn how to, handle yourself a little bit. There's pit bulls just walking around on the street, savage too, some of them. Um, and, you know, you get by. So the rivalries in those towns too were unbelievable. Basketball, Gloucester Catholic versus Gloucester City, which was always a really fun game to play in. Football as well, but that can bring on, it can start to form the animosity in small towns towards a player, which being able to carry that though and live through that when you're running 85 punt returns back to the house, every Thanksgiving on the team or two Thanksgivings. So I was only there my junior and senior year. Um, it can go one way or another. So looking back, uh, missing that whole semester, it ruined my core GPA for the NCAA clearinghouse. At the time, it was a lot stricter than it is today. And, I had woken up my junior year. I think it was like mid season or beginning of my junior year, the number two kicker in America on rivals.com. That link's in the description below. I put some links in there just to give you a little bit of information on who I am. Just because my dad played for the Steelers, they ranked as a kicker, and he was 5'6", 165. They listed me on Rivals at 6'1", 185 as a kicker. that ran a 4.5, bench press 340 pounds, and squatted 580, which was all confirmed by actual college scouts. Rutgers, Boston College actually came to talk to me my sophomore year while I was bench pressing about 340, I think, and that's where the number came from because he went and talked to somebody. But that's how those topics formulate and how things start to get passed around. But I had just come off a season my sophomore year where in basketball at Winslow Township High School, which is a whole nother story. I went to 4 different high schools, so we'll get into that why down the road, and some of the poaching from coaches to really get my dad to completely sell the house that he built and move to Winslow Township. All in all, it ruined my core GPA. So then that's how I really got to learn about the recruiting process, like inside and out. Having to go through some transfers in order to get to go to the D1 level. And that's when I started to learn the intricacies, the little things, the details on what's going on in the college office, the recruiting office. At a 1AA program where I was at Central Connecticut State, Coach Likens was there. He's at Miami now. I think he's one of the best coaches in college football, one of the best people, that I've met personally, and I've met, thousands of coaches now throughout my travels, through the years. Um, and Coach Eager was the coach that recruited me, though. He was a special teams coordinator, an O-line coach. And last I checked, he was at Seton Hill in Pennsylvania, D2. And, he let me in know a lot of things, like, the FAFSA, how it all worked, how I only cost $700 a semester, to put on scholarship, which I was not on scholarship at the time because I had to sit a year. So I had to pay out of pocket. They weren't going to scholarship me for the year. I had to sit transferring in from the D2 level after my year at Hargrave Military Academy, which is junior college prep school in today's terms. If you look up the Hargrave 4, just Google Merf Trout, MERF Trout Hargrave. You'll find some of my combine times, 4.51. I ran that year. I was pumping it out though on bench. I did 225 28 times, and I was more of a strong safety, free safety mold there. Led the team in interceptions. Had 4. Bunch of NFL players on that team. Keelan Williams. Just the list goes on and on. Jarrell Poe. Um, some really standout guys. Well, then there was the other side too. Number one DN in the country, Melvin Elise. Just some guys that had some issues that could have been corrected if somebody could have, guided them in the proper direction on the mentality that an approach they should have taken in order to get to the NFL. Because they showed all of those traits, all of that potential that you look for leading up to the draft in high school. So that's the part that bothered me actually. Like looking back, leaving there, there should have been more psychology involved in digging into each person's motives, really. Like why are you playing football? Like what's really driving you? Is it your hometown hero? Now you're expected, everybody's putting this pressure on you, you're going to save the community, first round draft pick type mentality, because that's good. That puts a lot of pressure on a high school student, especially when now they're ranked number 1 in the nation, and um, have offers from everyone and their dog. Uh, that's when role models are needed, the most in these young men's lives. It will avoid what ended up happening with a lot of players that I played with back then, and you know that's what life's about, man. Living and learning from those experiences and those mistakes. even if it's another person that you're observing making these mistakes over and over again, year in and year out, sometimes it's the same stories, and we need to, minimize those as much as possible as a recruiting community. Um, I believe that's, part of the mission of the Step Ratings program is to keep people competitive, uh, not let them get complacent. Um, any year, I watch guys every year either trend, I call it trending progression. I was just talking to um, a former Florida State, Seminole about his son's trending progression, and it's unbelievable, and it's trending straight upwards. But I've also witnessed the opposite, where I'm, seeing a downward trend in progression on the playing field, and that's never a good sign. That means either complacency has set in, somewhere along the line, and you're happy where you're at, or you know you weren't what they said you were in the beginning, which comes down to sports writers, and no offense to them. I mean, they're just doing their job. Uh, I understand that, and this year I'm going to do a lot better job in my writing, in my radio shows and videos. I don't need to attack them like I have in years past. Right now, I have all the analytical data and statistics and evidence to do this in a productive and educational way that not only creates change maybe in the entire process with how the general media goes about ranking recruits and coverage and all that, but also for recruits, for aspiring recruits, for youth football players, for high school coaches, for anybody that really wants to be involved in the betterment of this process. I think it's vital for America as a whole moving forward. These kids are superstars everywhere they go. Even if they don't go to the NFL, just they put that uniform on. They put that Vols uniform on. They put that Alabama uniform on. They put that Wisconsin uniform on. They put that North Dakota State. They put that South Dakota State. They put that Sam Houston State. They put the list goes on and on. Even the D2 schools. They put that Fort Hays State uni on. They they're instant known, at least in that region, on campus, online. And it's a very, very, very large, extremely large world online these days. Um, our website analytics from last year at College Football Today were insane. Scout Trout is the same way with the countries that we have visiting our website. You know, I've had an Australian quarterback. He was actually, I found out, the first Australian quarterback, because there's a lot of punters and kickers that come from there, to actually sign a scholarship to America at Lachlan Poor. I think he's looking for options right now, but um, it's still a first, and it's interesting on if you how you do things properly and step by step and in a detail oriented fashion, and reach a good amount of people already through various techniques. How fast that web can spread globally, and that brings us to a lot of things that we're going to cover on this podcast. I know a lot of people just dealt with that insane crypto crash. I felt it hard too. But it's not the end of the world. This stuff does this every year. Don't panic sell too much. What I do is I don't sell it when it's going down. This is all I'm going to talk about on this part of the show. Is that I create, I put it into the day, which is a stable coin, and then I wait for it to go all the way down, and I'll just get more of it. Get stack up more, because once it goes back up, well, it always does around December, Christmas time. And this year it carried on for a while. So, who, excuse me, who knows? But I'm just giving you some tips. The only reason I got into cryptocurrency, just kind of forced into it, back into it, because I was in it a little bit early. I should have stayed in, obviously, in like the infancy stages of Bitcoin when it was like 2000, maybe less. And we'll get into that story later on why and how it actually helped save me from a really bad time in my life with the business. Not the business. The business was going extremely well with really personal stuff with ex girlfriend. Um, but that's a story down the road. Learned a lot of life lessons from it too, and it brought me deeper down a rabbit hole in the United States, lobbyist system, which her father was. Lived in D.C. for a little bit, got to learn a lot about that. Uh, New Orleans, same way. I got to learn a lot there as well. In almost all 50 states, besides the ones that don't count in high school football for some reason, Alaska. I haven't been to Hawaii yet either. I've been through Montana, South Dakota. I actually visited there for a long time. North Dakota, Minnesota. I mean, and every state in between. It's been quite a ride. Um, but let's get back into. I played in Cali. I want to go back to Cali. I think it's a one heck of a state. Great people, great football. You know, we'll get into Cali later. We're going to cover states. We're going to cover the football states. We're going to cover the whys. We're going to cover recruiting boards, how these recruiting boards work. Um, if you're placed on a board, how different states are perceived, their high school level of play, why certain states have over 50%. Four states have over 50% of the, D1 recruits that sign on National Signing Day. How 247 just dumps everybody else in as 3 stars that they didn't know about after they sign on National Signing Day. Hundreds. It's annoying. Um, so part of the selection process, I'm gonna miss guys. I mean, but I've been first on every class so far. That we have now, 2022. I think I was first on 2021. I'm not really sure, but it got to over 1,000. Ridiculous. 2022 top 800, 2023 top 500, and soon to be released 2024 top 300. I mean, it's crazy, like the difference in opinion, but at the same time, when it was up in the public domain, the opinion was pretty much even, except obviously for some of my guys. I don't call them my guys. Um, Guys I've gotten the pleasure to write about. Scout, recruit, guys that were interested in the pipeline program. Uh, High academic kids, and most of them, which obviously you just heard my story. Academics can be weighed somewhat because I mean, misconstrued if something happens, like happened to me. Like a car, you're out a whole semester, you don't have no grades, you got all F's, so your whole ship just sank. All of your hard work by one decision. That's the butterfly effect. If you ever seen that movie with Austin Kutcher, he's one of my favorites. One flap of the wings, whole life changes. So we got to make proper decisions. We got to be accountable. Those are part of the step ratings, and all of the information is extremely hard to gain on everybody. But there's a lot you can tell from social media. There's a lot you can tell from um, habits, excuse me, and whatnot. So that being said, stay tuned for part 2 of the College Football Today Rockfin Season 2 podcast. Thanks for subscribing to the show.